Well, okay, Mr. Gates, thank you very much for joining us. I was told that it is your very first live online interview in China, so it's really an honor to have you here. Just want to let you know before this interview that, at this moment, we have already had more than 3 million netizens online. They watch your speech, and now they are waiting for the interview, and the number is still increasing. Well, you just delivered a public speech at Beijing University. But generally speaking, what's your expectation for Chinese young people?
Well, I think they're very lucky, particularly those that are at university, because what they're learning today will make a huge impact on the world. China, in terms of its improving itself, in terms of what it can do to the rest of the world, there's a high expectation, and this is the generation that gets to get out there and make it a reality, whether it's health breakthroughs, energy breakthroughs, the magic of software, taking artificial intelligence to a new level. So, a lot of expectation from the young generation.
Mm-hmm. So, do you think education really matters? That's why I asked the question, because I collect one question from some young students. They say, "Shall we drop out of college to start our own business, just like what Bill Gates did 40 years ago?" So, what's your advice for them?
Well, I don't think there's anybody who enjoys school as much as I do. Even today, I take a lot of online courses. There's a company called The Learning Company. I'm always buying their lectures and watching those. And so I do think my reading and taking lots of courses and loving learning was a big part of my success. And today in my foundation work, I need to learn, and I get to learn about broad areas like agriculture or biology. And I think having a deep sense of curiosity that I developed in school allows me to keep loving this job and learning what I need to know. So the idea that learning is less important, I think that's wrong. I think today continually learning and understanding so many subjects, you can see the interrelationships between them. I think it's a complex world. Solving tough problems means having a lot of deep knowledge. So both reading and learning in a hopefully broad way is more important than ever.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I think there are so many people, Chinese people, they just want to copy your way, but they don't understand the situation you were facing at that moment, right? But anyway, now you are wearing many hats, such as the entrepreneur, software engineer, philanthropist, father of 3 children, and husband of your wife. My question is, in which role do you think you've done the best, and why?
Well, my wife and children will get to judge how well I'm doing with them. They're all doing well, so I feel very lucky about that. But obviously, anything they need is my top priority. The foundation work. It's my job. I love my job. Mm-hmm. This will be the career for the rest of my life. And my partner in figuring out the strategy and sharing what's working, what's not, is my wife, Melinda. So the same way that I had at Microsoft, Paul Allen, Steve Ballmer, now I have a completely equal partner, and that makes it more fun to rise to the challenges, to see what we're getting done. So I'm very committed to the foundation work. That's the thing that I'm putting a lot of energy into today, and I feel like we're doing well.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk more about the philanthropy. Being the founder of Microsoft, you're quite well known in China because Microsoft has changed the way that everyone works and lives. But as I remember, in 2008, you decided to shift your full-time job from Microsoft to the Gates Foundation. Instead of making money, you started spending dollars on philanthropy. So why did you make such a decision, and why at that time?
Well, I loved all my work at Microsoft, mm-hmm. and I started to do the foundation work part-time a little bit in the late 1990s, but it was the year 2000 when I made the big donations and the foundation really started to go. So I was watching over that with some of my time and beginning to learn about the magic of vaccines and see a lot of problems that weren't being worked on that I thought should be worked on. And by 2008, I felt that my unique contribution was more in the foundation work. Now, maybe that was selfish because, for this phase of my life, I think it's, where I'm backing scientists and encouraging people and traveling the world talking about what we still need to do to help developing countries. I thought what I could do there was quite unique, and I saw that there was a great team of people at Microsoft who would carry it forward. I still spend some time, part-time, 3 to 4 days a month over at Microsoft. That's fun, but nowadays it's mostly foundation work, and it's great fun as well.
As you mentioned that your foundation's work is primarily focusing on the global health and development, aiming to help people, the poor people. Just want to ask that, why you choose these areas as the foundation's priorities, and could you please give us some detailed example to introduce that? What's your biggest achievement so far?
Well, the work we do is about the diseases that affect poor people, and these are mostly the infectious diseases, diarrhea, pneumonia. They're the things that we still have 6 million kids every year who die before the age of 5. Now, back in 1990, that was 12 million, and so it's a huge reduction, and our foundation is proud that, particularly through our work in vaccines, we've made a significant contribution to that reduction. And so all the big infectious killers, malaria, tuberculosis, HIV, we built teams of experts. We work both on the research and development, so creating drugs and vaccines for these diseases, but also the delivery, taking the tools that we have, like bed nets, and making sure those get out to everybody who's at risk of that disease. Here in China, our particular focus has been HIV and tuberculosis, and we've seen a lot of good success. If the same number of children were dying today as in 1990, there'd be over 100 million children who are alive that wouldn't be alive, and so that's probably our biggest accomplishment. We're also very excited that we're very close to having polio be eradicated. So far this year, there have been 4 cases, and we're hoping this is the last calendar year that we ever have cases. And then we wait 3 years to make sure we haven't missed any. And then if that is successful, it'll become the second disease after smallpox. So I'm, thrilled that we're on the verge on that incredible milestone.
I'm a journalist focusing on international news, and I've been to many poor countries and war zones over the past years. I often feel, powerless because the issues affecting the poor people look so complicated. So my question is that, what do you think are the biggest challenges that your foundation is facing? Financial problems, inadequate technology, or cultural differences?
Well, it is a challenge to deliver all these things. The governments in poor countries are often very weak, with limited capacity or even sometimes corruption. And so we really have to think about designing the tool. If we're making a new seed that's more productive, will the farmer want to use it? Does it fit to exactly their conditions? If we have a new medicine that we have to keep cold, do we have some way to make sure that happens? And that's when we have a partner here in China, ACMA, who's made some incredible passive refrigeration devices working with us that help on that a lot. So we have to be realistic about the delivery. But the progress is there. Every year I go back, I can see less kids dying of malaria, less kids dying of diarrhea. if the first time you see it, if you're used to being in the U.S. or China, it is a little bit stunning, because you see that even basic food adequacy is still a problem for hundreds of millions of people.
Okay, so let's come back to Beijing. I hear that your foundation's Beijing office will celebrate its 10-year anniversary, right, this year. So my question is, not many Chinese exactly know how it works. So what's your mission in China, and any major progress or challenges that you want to share with us?
We started out primarily with the focus on helping China with the top infectious diseases and with tobacco. So we had HIV, tuberculosis, and then smoking. As we've gone on, we've seen that there's so much innovation in China, including how to lift people out of poverty, lots of innovative science. And so along with our work here in the country, we're finding in agriculture and in health the best innovations and the best companies, and partnering with them to help them get into these poor countries. Just this year, we did add, at President Xi's request, an engagement on poverty alleviation. And so whether that's nutrition or health, we'll participate in what is a high priority for the government, which is taking the last 50 million or so in extreme poverty and doing the best by 2020 to bring that down to near zero.
In the annual letter earlier this year, I just quote here, well, you say that polio will soon be history. In our lifetimes, malaria will end. No one will die from AIDS. Few people will get TB. Children everywhere will be well nourished. So what makes you so confident to say so?
Well, the great thing in all this work is that science will give us better tools. And although it's been proven to be very difficult to get an HIV vaccine, I feel confident within the next 10 years, perhaps even sooner, but in that time frame, we'll have that. For nutrition, we're figuring out how to put into salt a lot of the micronutrients, including iron, that's been hard to get out to people. And so because of innovation, we'll be able to surprise people and make that progress. These are tough diseases, but new drugs, new vaccines, the pipeline of discovery is very, very strong here. And the beauty of infectious disease is you start to get the numbers down, then less and less people get infected. In fact, although TB worldwide is still growing, here in China there has been a good decline. So that is an example of what we hope to achieve in the rest of the world.
But you once mentioned that the foundation will close down within 20 years after you and Melinda are not around anymore. Why is that?
Well, the hope is that what our foundation is good at, which is these global health problems, that they'll be largely solved, and that I'm sure the world will have new problems, but it'll also have rich people who are alive and can understand what sort of skills and approaches should be brought to bear. And so the thing that our foundation is really special at, it should take all of its resources and spend that, and get rid of those incredible health inequities that come from infectious disease. And so, it's a good thing if in the future people say, hey, what did they mean malaria? What was that? What was tuberculosis? What was polio? Even today in rich countries, a lot of people don't remember polio because it's been gone from rich countries for quite some time.
There's another question about your friend. We know that Warren Buffett and you are a close friend. Buffett has promised that to donate 80% of his fortune to your foundation, and it was reported that you guys often play golf and bridge together. So it is really interesting. Do you still meet a lot? And how did you guys build up such strong trust and friendship between each other over the past years?
Well, I met Warren in 1994, and based on what I'd read about him, that he was an investor, I wasn't sure I would find him interesting because, just buying and selling stocks, seems like not a big contribution to me. But when I did meet him, the way he thinks about the world, about business and business success and about people, he had such a deep knowledge and he asked such good questions to me about software. And when I would ask him about the businesses he invested in, like banking, he would have such clear answers. And so we learned that we love to talk to each other about the world and how it's changing. And so we take every excuse, whether it's golf, which neither of us are very good at, or bridge, which actually we're okay, but any opportunity to get together. So we're on the phone every week. I'm on the board of his company, Berkshire Hathaway, and I often when I'm on the East Coast, I can stop in Omaha, which is in the middle of the country, have dinner there before I head back to Seattle. So, we love talking about all the amazing things going on, and it's become an incredible friendship. And I never expected that he would contribute to my foundation, but that's what he ended up doing. So I owe him all the more.
Trust is very important, but actually in China, the lacking of trust from the public has been a big problem for Chinese philanthropic organizations. So what's your advice on building up strong people's trust on these organizations?
Well, I think, trust is earned as people see that the professionals running these organizations are so committed to the cause and they're really measuring the outcome. If some money doesn't have good impact or it goes astray, that they, admit that. It is interesting that the trust of the nonprofit sector, at least the key well-known entities in the United States, is very strong, because people go in, they volunteer, they see that. It's not to say they're all perfect, but it has developed a certain professionalism. And I have no doubt that'll happen in China as well. It is an important part of providing the social services and giving people an opportunity to volunteer in their community. So government is the key, but philanthropy sits on top of that and provides a level of care and innovation that government alone isn't capable of.
We hope so. I believe that you have already made countless choices in your life. So the question is, so far, what's the best decision you've ever made? And what do you regret most?
Well, I was very lucky to be born in the United States, and to get a great education. I chose to go into software. That worked well. I was lucky enough to meet Melinda, so that's, set this stage of my life into a great trajectory. So I'd have to say marrying the right person would be at the top of the list. But then things like, getting to see software at a young age, or meeting Warren Buffett. I've been a very, very lucky person in so many ways.
Okay. Let's talk something about the future. The AlphaGo, I don't know whether you know that. AlphaGo shocked the entire world last year. Actually, 5 days ago, I reported another Go games between AIs in Japan 7 days ago. It's very interesting, and I was totally surprised that AI could be so smart. So my question is, do you think that the AI is going to change the world? For example, is it going to change the way that people do philanthropy?
Well, I don't know about philanthropy. I think a lot of things will happen before that. But it's absolutely stunning, the progress being made in artificial intelligence. You're absolutely right that AlphaGo, which is based on DeepMind, is an amazing milestone. The fact that it's now quite a bit better than any human player. I played enough Go to have an appreciation of what a deep and complex game it is. So yes, we can expect a lot of machine intelligence, in areas like the medical area, controlling robots, That will give us a lot of choice as a society. We'll be able to produce a lot more things. It's kind of a continuation. We used to all have to be farmers. And if you'd said to the farmers, hey, only 2% of us in the United States will be farmers, what are the rest of us going to do? Nobody would have said, okay, we'll have manicure shops, and we'll have psychiatrists, and we'll have fast food and Disneyland. So some amazing things have come out of the efficiency of automation. Here it's going to happen faster than ever before, so adjusting to that could be a challenge.